Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. We're going to start off with Andrew Cuomo, the governor of the great state of New York, or at least it used to be. It's certainly in decline at the moment. But he's taken a stand against the First Amendment, and he knows that the stand he has taken is against the First Amendment, and it centers around the old rebel flag, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then progressive governors across the state, both Republicans and Democrats, because there are progressive Republicans as well, they are fighting mad, spitting mad, and they're blaming Congress because they're not getting their bailout they feel like they deserve. Their states, they believe, need to get a bailout from coronavirus. Actually, they're just trying to take advantage of a situation, and we'll expand upon that in just a moment. But we start every day the same way with our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU. We come to you live every day, Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock Eastern time, or as close as we can get it, from Big Daddy Unlimited Studios in Gainesville, Florida. To check out our sponsor, because I tell you all the time, not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those in the fight. And me and my psychic sidekick, Billy Bob Bass, he got a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. Check us out. We're here every day fighting for the American way of life right here. But to look above the show, no matter where or when you're watching it, John Martin YouTube, for instance, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. Look above the video and you will see the description of the show. Scroll down on it and you'll see a couple of things. One of them is our sponsorship link that'll take you to Big Daddy Unlimited, which is literally your Second Amendment headquarters. All things Second Amendment related, from guns, ammunition, swag, tactical gear, thousands of items delivered at factory direct pricing directly to your door. Check it out, Big Daddy Unlimited. We're also doing a giveaway. We're in the last couple of days of our giveaway here, and you can go to look at there on the same above the show. We're giving away 3 shirts from Patriot Threads. All you got to do is click on the giveaway link, no obligation whatsoever. Fill out the information, and you will be eligible to win these 3 shirts. They come to us and to you courtesy of patriotthreads.org. That's patriotthreads.org. Apparel with a purpose. Essentially what they do is they put together t-shirts for charity events, charity types things. All you got to do is check them out. JMT, I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied this morning. 20% off promo code. Go directly to you. Now, we're giving away those shirts in the giveaway. That's different. But if you want to see what Patriot Threads is all about, they're offering a 20% discount on everything they do with the promo code JMT. John Martin Talks JMT. Check it out. We really appreciate you checking out our sponsors. All right, let's get right into this thing. This is from a publication called Reason. I have not actually used this publication before, but it sounds pretty credible to me because they're talking about Andrew Cuomo in a pretty straightforward light. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo bans sale of Confederate flags despite knowing this has First Amendment problems. There's old Cuomo with his mask off. I guess he's trying to make a point somewhere there. Let me give you a few caveats before we go any deeper. In case you hadn't noticed, I got an old Southern accent. Yeah, this is what they call a Florida cracker accent. You know, all the states in the South they got a little twang in their voice, but they don't all sound the same. This is literally a dying accent. You won't hear too many people in Florida anymore speaking this way. Of course, unless you're up in my neck of the woods. So I come from like 5, 6 generations of Floridians. We got property that was claimed before this, when this was still a territory. So we go way back in Florida. So this accent. So I say all that to say this. I'm not a big proponent one way or another of the rebel flag. I don't have anything against it. I guess I got some things for it, but I don't, it's not a big deal in my life. Now, for some folks, It is a huge deal, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And so for some folks, it's not. Now, I had relatives, of course, I didn't know them, obviously, that fought for the South in the Civil War. One of the most prized possessions my family has, and I got a cousin who's kind of the keeper of it, that it is a Civil War rifle that a relative of mine carried in the Florida Brigades. And it has notches on it, so it actually went into action and everything else. And it is in pristine condition, considering it was in a war. And that is a prized family heirloom. It has nothing to do with the righteousness or wrong or whatever of any cause whatsoever. It's just a family heirloom. Most people, most soldiers that go to war, even today, don't go to war necessarily for a particular cause. They're called up, they serve their duty, and as I tell you all the time, this is a little bit of a side note, no soldier ever dies in vain. You'll never hear me say that, because soldiers die because politicians put them where they want them to be, and most soldiers actually die defending the buddy next to them. And so they never die in vain. Are they put into situations like they maybe shouldn't have been? Certainly, all the time. Is the Civil War something that maybe shouldn't have happened? You could certainly make a case for that. So I'm not here to defend the rebel flag, and I don't say that with any guilt, shame, or remorse. I have no white guilt, by the way. I haven't said that in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. If you're looking for somebody to be politically correct and full of white guilt, you're in the wrong place. Now, let's get to this rebel flag before I get into the meat of the story. And I can tell you from being here in the South, yes, let's just start with the worst case scenario. There are some people who display Confederate emblems and other things for hate. There is no question about that. There are people who do that. I actually think they are the minority, but to discount that, I don't. I think the vast majority of people that now fly rebel flags and rebel flag t-shirts and whatnot, there's two reasons why they do it. One is they think it's cool or whatever, and they're trying to make some kind of statement that way. And maybe it's about heritage. I do think there are people who believe it is about heritage, and I can understand that. But I think the vast majority of people that fly the rebel flag nowadays has zero to do with slavery, racism, or anything else. I understand why some people would take it that way, but mostly it is giving the finger to the man. It is giving the finger to the system, to the big bloated federal government, and all that is. It is a symbol of resistance to people. I think that is the chief reason. That's just my opinion, but it's an opinionated fact nonetheless. I just wanted to get that out there so you understand where I'm coming from. I'm pretty well neutral on it myself, you know. Let's get to this story, guys. I guarantee you Cuomo ain't neutral on it, and I don't think he really cares that much. I think it's all for political expediency. And really, the big controversy behind the rebel flag, when you hear a lot of these politicians talking, it's all about politics. It really doesn't. Like the statue tearing down, the renaming of bases, it doesn't change anything. Are there people who might be offended by that legitimately? Yeah, I'll give you that. But, going back, and I'm going to get into the story in just a second, but I got to get a few things off my chest. This whole thing, Biden is on the verge of being president. God help us. I want President Trump to prevail in his challenges, and I still hold out hope that he can. But God help us if Joe Biden becomes president. He literally started his campaign out with a lie. If you remember, he did a video supposedly from Charlottesville, even though they wouldn't even let him come in the city, talking about the big lie that President Trump said there were good people on both sides between Antifa and the Nazis that did the protesting in Charlotte. That is a flat out, bald-faced lie. 100%, and the media knows it, and they keep putting it out there over and over. Biden even said it again in his acceptance speech for the Democratic nomination. Go back, check it out. The lie, yes, President Trump did say there are good people on both sides, but he was specifically, go look at the transcripts, he was specifically talking about the people who were debating on whether or not it was appropriate to take the Robert E. Lee statue down out of the park in Charlottesville. He said on that, there are good people on both sides, those that want to keep it, those that want to take it down. And immediately, within a minute of saying that, he totally condemned contrary to what you hear in the mainstream media, totally condemned Nazis and right-wing and white supremacy. Donald Trump has condemned white supremacy probably more than any man alive. All right, let's get into this story. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, a Democrat, like we had to be told that, signed legislation on Tuesday prohibiting the sale of Confederate flags on public property, including at state and local fairs. Yeah, okay. So, there's this idea of a double standard out there. And if you're new to the show, you might not have heard this, but I tell you all the time, there is no double standard. First of all, welcome, howdy, how are you? Glad to have you. Appreciate you very much. There's no double standard. You say, what are you talking about? There is no double standard. There is a standard for anything that has to do with conservatism, patriotism, Trump supporters, that kind of thing. There is a standard for that. But there's no standard for the left. They can say or do anything they want, period, with very little, if any, consequence. So yeah, there is a standard, and people like me and many of you in my audience are held to it. But the left, show me what standard they're held to, because I can't find it. Chime in on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching BitChute. We're in Rumble now. The list is long. Chime in on Facebook. Tell me what standard the left is held to, because I just can't seem to find it. But this is an example right here. It doesn't matter to me what you think about the rebel flag one way or another, as I kind of explained how I see it. So to me, that's not the issue. It's a free speech issue. So if you're going to be like Cuomo and condemn the battle flag, which is the general one people accept as the rebel flag, there were actually multiple rebel flags, but that's another story. What about Black Lives Matter signs and Antifa emblems and stuff that are in the street? What about them? Because they promote violence. Black Lives Matter, and I'm not talking about everybody who wears a t-shirt. I'm talking about the organization of Black Lives Matter is a symbol of communism. They were founded by communists. They even said it on their website, and people like me kept bringing it up, and they took a lot of that down. And Antifa, they are the armed militant wing of the modern Democratic Party. It's just that way. But they can do anything they want. Cuomo, back to this article, Cuomo was well aware that such legislation is likely to fail a First Amendment test, but this did not deter him. Are you surprised that this didn't deter him? Because Andrew Cuomo doesn't care about America. I can prove it to you, and I am in just a moment. He doesn't love America. He thinks America is a sorry place. The Democrats' new mantra, I hadn't said this in a while, but of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. The Democrats' new mantra, which I created, by the way, I'm not saying they necessarily said this, but I think you'll agree with me. It's basically America sucks. America sucks. It's always sucked. It sucks for some worse than others. And if you vote for us, Biden Progresso world, which is upon us, we'll make it suck for everybody equally. That is basically what the Democratic Party brings to the table and promises. And Cuomo is right in the middle of this, because I'm going to play this video of you here. This is not me saying it. This is Andrew Cuomo talking about the greatness of America. Listen to what he has to say.
Not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
It was never that great.
We have not.
He talks about how we hadn't lived up to the promise of America, and I understand that. But America was never that great. You know what offends me the most about that statement is who it's coming from. Andrew Cuomo. Love him, hate him. His dad was Mario Cuomo. If you look at the Cuomo story, what pisses me off about that statement is that his family, I don't care what you think of them, his family is an emblem of the American dream and success story. And to his life story, his family's life story is a testament to the greatness of America. Because they're an immigrant family that came here, and his dad rose to be governor of the great state of New York. Of course, Andrew is now governor of that same state. His dad was once one of the front runners for the Democratic National Committee and was on the cusp of potentially becoming president of the United States. And his little brother, Andrew's little brother, Chris Cuomo, is one of the highest paid media celebrities in the country. And I'm not defending them. I'm simply stating fact. So for Andrew Cuomo to go before the cameras and say America was never that great, when you look at his family's history, and it is literally a testimony to the American greatness, it just pisses me off. I don't know. There's no other way to say it. But listen to what Cuomo wrote. He said, this country, talking about the great United States of America, faces a pervasive growing attitude of intolerance and hate. Really? Really? So we're getting worse. This is what the left is pushing out there over really since the Trump administration started. And President Trump, let me just, I hadn't said this in a while, but understand, give me some tolerance and listen to me. They talk about President Trump being racist, like I said about Biden opening his campaign with a lie. Let me just say for the record, I agree with one thing. President Trump is the worst racist in the history of the presidency. The worst without a doubt. You know why? Because he sucks at it. Apparently he didn't read the Clucker handbook. Because for a guy who's supposed to be racist, he sure has done a lot of things for all Americans, including people of various shades of color and Black America. Remember Bob Johnson? Have you heard that name? He is the founder of BET and the first Black billionaire and a Democrat. A couple of years ago, he was at the White House and he stated that Donald Trump was bringing light to areas and neighborhoods of that had never seen the light of darkness is where they were. And he was talking about the light of economic recovery. Donald Trump has done more for African Americans, for all Americans, to actually make change that matters. You know, what does Obama say? You know, change, hope and change, giving us hope and change we could spend. So Donald Trump, I mean, think about it. Before this pandemic, we had Black unemployment at an all-time low. Black business ownership, 400% higher. Black home ownership, all-time high. For someone who is a racist, he doesn't seem to understand what a racist is supposed to do. That's why I say he's the worst ever, because he absolutely sucked at that. But these guys don't. Cuomo don't. He said, this country faces a pervasive growing attitude of intolerance and hate, what I have referred to in the body politic as an American cancer. So, yeah, this is another thing I would agree with Cuomo on. Our country does have sickness. The tree of liberty is full of rot right now. I talked a lot about this yesterday. Check out our podcast. Go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page. Like it, share it with others. You can see us, of course, on our YouTube channel. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. We're on multiple platforms. Don't forget America's Voice News. I know a lot of y'all are watching live on Facebook. Howdy, how are you? But America's Voice News streams our show as a late night show on their streaming service. We're live on their Facebook. We're streamed, I think, at like 2 o'clock in the morning on there. It keeps changing a little bit. But America's Voice News is a great alternative to the mainstream media. They're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. You can download the free app on your Android or your iPhone. They're on channel 219, Dish Network, and the Pluto channel streaming service. So check it out, and they archive our show in their system as well. But he says this country faces a cancer. It's a cancer. It's a cancer not of hate and intolerance. It's a cancer of the progressive left. Communism is seeping into us, and people who don't understand the beauty of America and the Constitution, not the perfection. America is not perfect by any stretch, because guess what? It was founded and is still ruled by human beings. And there's a book somewhere out there that talks about us falling short of the glory. Maybe we ought to read that from time to time too. But he goes on to say, by limiting the display and sale of the Confederate flag, Nazi swastika, and other symbols of hatred from being displayed or sold on state property, including the state fairgrounds, this will help safeguard New Yorkers from the fear installing effects of these abhorrent symbols. So let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, and I got a lot of listeners in New York, and I got one in particular I give a shout out every now and then. Charlie, good morning, how are you? I got a lot of Jewish followers in all over the country, but in New York. Are you really telling me, if you're a Black American, if you're a Jewish American, now I understand the symbols of Nazis and Ku Klux Klan and all that. I get it, okay? They are symbols, and they can be used as symbols of hate. Nazis, there's no other way to look at it, really. But is that really, if you're walking the streets of New York right now, if you walk out of your apartment or your complex or whatever, your home at 10 o'clock at night, are you really worried about Nazis? Are you really worried about MAGA hat Trump supporters with a noose or something, like that Jesse Smollett in Chicago? Is that what you're really afraid of? Are you really afraid of some old boys coming down going, America first, and wearing a MAGA hat, and a rebel flag maybe tattooed on them or a t-shirt? Is that really what you're afraid of? Because I don't think that's what you need. If true, let me just tell you this, that is the least of your worries. And that's not downplaying any symbolic whatever. I get it. But Jewish people right now, their biggest thing that I hear in New York is they actually want to go to synagogue. They actually want to go to the graveside of their loved ones. And people like Cuomo and Comrade Bill de Blasio, straight up communists, are keeping them from doing that. And are literally arresting Jewish people for wanting to pray in their own synagogues. And black Americans, my God, your children are being shot dead in their strollers in New York City. And it's not a bunch of white Ku Klux Klanners, as bad as that might be, that are doing that. It's black on black crime for the most part, because black lives don't matter when it comes to killing other black folks. You show me where it matters, because I don't see it. And I'm just being straight with you. If you're expecting political correctness, you're in the wrong place. And I'm not, let me just say for the record, Mr. Algorithm and Facebook and everything else, because I'm determined to stay in the public square as much as I possibly can. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm not saying that Ku Klux Klan, I'm not even saying rebel flags, certainly not Nazis. Any of that stuff is pleasant. But free speech, I hate to break it to you, Mr. Cuomo, free speech is not agreeable speech. If you can't accept hate speech, then there is no free speech. And I'm not condoning hate speech. Matter of fact, if I heard somebody saying stuff like that, and I've done it before, I'd go and tell them, man, you need to take that down the road. But it's not, I'm just telling you, I lived and worked in New York City for about 4 or 5 years in the mid-'80s. And I was never afraid of Nazis and white supremacists. Some of the hoodlums that run the street and was in the subways back in those days, yeah, I was a bit scared of them. But, and I don't think much has changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. Cuomo noted that certain technical changes are necessary, to make sure the ban is compliant with the First Amendment, which protects free expression, including the expression of hateful ideas. Hateful ideas. Does he really believe that? I don't know that he does, actually. I'm going to play you a video right now that is of Governor Cuomo a few years ago. And he signed this abortion bill, expanding abortion basically to after the child is born, as Rush Limbaugh. Always like to pray for Rush Limbaugh. Hope he's doing okay. The fourth trimester, as he called it, like they did in Virginia or tried to. But New York passed something like that. Now, I don't care which real side you are on the abortion issue, to make my point here. I don't think abortion is something to be celebrated. I've said this before, but I used to work at a drug treatment center, and I had to deal with women many, many times, literally had to take them. It was my job. I didn't enjoy this part of it, but they had no one else. And I sat with them while they went in and had abortions. I've had to do that numerous times. Not proud of it, just part of my job. But I can tell you this, and I'm not saying they're not out there, but I have yet to meet a woman that celebrated having an abortion. I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm not even getting into the topic of it one way or another at the moment, because I've made my position pretty clear on that in the past. Check out my podcast. But I've never seen anyone celebrate it. But Andrew Cuomo and his crowd, the progressive hardcore left, they celebrate death on a daily basis. Look at this video. This is the signing ceremony for an expansion of the abortion bill in New York that literally allows kids to be killed right up till the time they're born. Look how happy they are. Check it out.
Albany. The bill was first introduced in 2007 and removes abortion from the state criminal code and ensures women the right to an abortion in New York.
Up to the last minute, they get into that on. But look how much they're celebrating it, man. It's like they're partying like it's 1999. And you may say, well, what does that have to do with freedom of speech? I'm going back to this thing that Cuomo said, including the expression of hateful ideas. I can tell you this. There are millions of Americans that believe what Cuomo was laughing and giddy and celebrating what is the most hateful idea there is out there. That taking the most innocent life possible is not only affront to God, but is against every single thing they believe in. Now, whether you agree with them or not is a different story. But there are people that believe that that is the most hateful thing you could possibly do. And Cuomo and his crowd just laugh it off and basically make them, whatever. I mean, I had a guy the other day say that on Facebook, and a lot of y'all defend, the trolls are back, by the way, on Facebook. They went away right after the election, but they're back now. I guess their paychecks are cashing, but you're listening. It's all right. Said that when he listened to me, it was like listening to Green Acres, and he didn't understand. Hey, I take that as a compliment, man. Green Acres is, was a great show. There's a lot of old cracker wisdom in what I say, and believe me, when people like me are gone, it's gone. That's why I feel obligation to put it out there. But Cuomo doesn't give a darn about free speech, doesn't care about life. We're going to talk more about him again in our second article. But keep this in mind. Cuomo is supposedly on the short list for Attorney General, God help us if Biden becomes president. Can you imagine this guy as Attorney General? This blowhard tin-pot dictator as Attorney General? I mean, wow. You talk about king of swamp. I mean, he will be one of the head swamp rats. But welcome to Biden-Cuomo progressive world. I've been warning you about this for quite some time. And even Ocasio-Cortez is actually listening, I guess, to what I'm having to say, or certainly about some of these issues, and she's not all that happy with Biden as well, because it's not progressive enough. But Progresso World, I've been telling you guys that Progresso World is on our doorstep, and even some of you Bernie bros and all that, if we actually get a Biden president, you ain't gonna like it, because just like that thing says, you can vote your way into socialism, and I would say we're on the verge of communism, but you always got to shoot your way out, which is probably why they want to take the guns away. All right, let's move on to this next story. This is a Politico story, and it is about the stimulus package or lack thereof in the effect of what these states want. It's about bailout. It's madness. Governors rage over state stimulus snub, according to Politico. Now, this guy here is one of the leading tin-pot dictators out there. I've been saying I call these guys little Napoleons. This is Governor Murphy of the great state of New Jersey. And he is symbolic of everything that is wrong with progressivism and these little Napoleons that have taken away our rights and actually think that they're in charge, that not the American people. Because we talked about this yesterday. Go back and look at the Declaration of Independence. One of the things that it talks about in there is that the consent of the governed to be governed by people, these clowns like Murphy. And we need to take back that consent, to be honest with you. And that it could get pretty tricky here coming up. Leaders across the country pleaded with Congress for months to reach a deal that would deliver hundreds of billions of dollars to plug budget holes and shore up everything from schools to emergency services. Understand, they're not talking about helping you as a worker or a restaurant owner or whatever, a barbershop. I mean, who would have believed that the heroes of the current day would be barbershop owners, gym owners, and restaurant owners? They're the ones standing up right now. I mean, I guess, patriotism, you never know where it's going to come from. But our heroes, some of my great heroes over the course of this year have been restaurant owners, barbers and beauticians, and gym owners who have stood up to the man in New Jersey in particular. So that they're not talking about helping you, the American people. That's not what's got Murphy and his crowd upset. They're upset because their fiscal policies are being exposed for the frauds that they are. I'm not saying election fraud, so don't ban me. I'm talking about their fraudulent budgets. They basically spend money on everything but what they should. Says here, but the $900 billion emerging deal from Congress expected to include direct checks to American people. They don't like that. They want the money themselves. And a weekly unemployment boost of $300 through March will not provide the state and local aid that was requested. And I like the first part of this paragraph. Let me read this part again. It says, leaders across the country. Let me tell you, just because you're elected to governor, don't make you a leader. Matter of fact, I can make a big time case that people like Murphy in New Jersey and Gavin Newsom out in California, and the list is long, Whitmer in Michigan, Wolf in Pennsylvania, they're not leaders. They're elected career politicians. That doesn't make them a leader. In fact, they are just the opposite. It reminds me of something my dad used to say. He says a leader, he was talking about a political leader, and man, was he ever. He said that anybody can take people where they want to go. Anybody. You can lead a horse to water, not necessarily make them drink. But he said anybody can take people where they want to go. But a true leader takes people where they need to be. And that echoes in my heart, my soul, and my head all the time. It's one of the things I hope to do with this show. Because I try to inform you about what's happening. I'm battling ignorance and apathy on a daily basis. I need your help. So support our sponsors, Big Daddy Unlimited, Patriot Threads. Don't forget the giveaway. Check all of that out in the above the video, no matter where you're watching it. Not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those in the fight. And one of the reasons I do this show is to take people where I think they need to go. Because a lot of times people don't really know. That's what leadership is. Sometimes, leadership is leading people. What did Moses do? Led them across the Badlands, basically. And finally, even though he didn't actually get there himself, he took them not where they wanted to go, but where they needed to be. And that's what a leader does. To show me one progressive leader that fits that definition. Do you really think, God help us, if Joe Biden becomes president, that he is a leader in that sense, that he is going to take us where we need to be? I think he's just going to try to take you where you need to go and give you as much free stuff as possible along the way. It's easy to pick up free stuff. It's not easy to be a rugged individualist that the Constitution was founded for. But I can tell you this, it is dadgum sure worth it. It really is. There's so many people committing suicide and stuff. I hadn't said this in a while. You hear all about this, and I get it. I understand. I dealt with suicide a lot when I worked at the drug treatment center. I've seen it firsthand. It's sad. But I heard a guy talking on a show the other day, on a news show, saying a lot of people don't have, quote, coping skills. And that's probably true. But how come they don't? How come they don't? Why is it that we're living in the most prosperous times that man has ever seen? The poorest person is living better than the kings and the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. They really are. You got air conditioning, you got food. You walk into a grocery store in America and see, you get free food, everything else. I'm not downplaying the effects of pandemic. I'm not downplaying unemployment and all that. But the reality is, we as a human species, especially in this great experiment we call the United States of America, are living better than the pharaohs did. We are. We just don't seem to. We're uneducated about that. We're ignorant about that. But, the thing is, we're not breeding, so to speak, rugged individualists. We're breeding people, as a good friend of mine used to say about the social safety net, it's become a hammock. And if you look at the Democratic Party and you look at Democratic elected officials, what are they? One thing they all say, oh, we're the party of the poor. They're the party of the billionaires. We know that. But they say they're the party of the poor, which means what? They need more poor folks, right? So if you look at all these social welfare programs created by government, what is the one thing they have in common? They want to keep you comfortable in poverty. They don't want to lift you out of it. They want to make you as happy as they can and stuck right where you are. And that's what's happening across the nation, the way I see it. Back to this article. The stimulus agreement comes just as CARES funding, that was one of the first packages they passed, is drying up, and as states are taking on two logistical nightmares, weathering a winter surge of COVID-19 cases and distributing COVID-19 vaccines. You know what really is the problem? Is the shutdown. The shutdowns. You look at what places that are struggling that say, oh, we're going bankrupt, we need the money. They're run by Democrats and they're shut down. And this is only going to get worse if we have Joe Biden, God help us, become president. Because one of my axioms here at John Martin Talks is I tell you that progressives take them at their word. You don't have to guess where they stand for. They've infected themselves with Trump derangement syndrome, and they become so bold, they tell you, even as ludicrous as some of their ideas are, they tell you exactly what they plan to do, and Biden is no exception. So if you think that things are economically going to get better under Joe Dadgum Biden, you need to listen to what he said about that and take him at his word. Check it out.
If you're sworn in come January, and we have coronavirus and the flu combining, which many scientists have said is a real possibility, would you be prepared to shut this country down again?
I would be prepared to do whatever it takes to save lives, because we cannot get the country moving until we control the virus. That is the fundamental flaw of this administration's thinking to begin with.
So he said that he would shut it down. The video going on a little bit longer. He said absolutely he would shut this thing down. And I understand this idea of protecting us from the virus. We're terrified for some reason. You know, we claim to be a Christian nation, and that number's dropping, by the way. Maybe that's why. And we believe in an afterlife, but we're scared to go there. You know, I don't understand this imminent fear of death. I really don't. I never had. Now, don't get me wrong, man. I want to live as long as I can be somewhat healthy, because I want to see my grandchildren develop into the great human beings they're on the path to doing. I just dropped my little grandson off to, he's 3 now, grammar school, and I want to see him. I want to take that boy fishing, so I want to live. Don't misunderstand me, man. I want to live. But if it's like the lieutenant governor of Texas, and his name escapes me at the moment, I remember what his words don't, where he said if he had a choice, he said the same thing about wanting to live, but if he had a choice between dying in his 70s, which he was, and letting his grandchildren inherit the greatness of America that he came to know and love and appreciate, then he would take death in a minute. We used to be like that as a nation, period. What made our country so great is not a lack of fear of death, but facing it anyway. Boldness, the exceptionalism of America. Have we lost that just so we can watch Netflix or something? It's never. You may not have heard this unless you've been listening to the show. Let me just tell you a little secret. It has never been safe to leave the cave. That's why Joe Biden spent so much time in the basement. But if you listen to the Faucis of the world, not downplaying the science, not saying don't protect yourself, but if you stay hidden, well, you don't have a life to start with. And if all that worked, why would we be in this second run of the pandemic? We cannot, as President Trump rightly said, make the cure worse than the disease. But Biden is going to shut us down. It's going to get worse, and it's going to get much worse in these blue, and yes, they are, blue states like New York. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who claims he's facing a $15 billion budget gap, slammed the news as hyper-political parochialism that will bankrupt his state and worsen the burden responding to the pandemic. Well, Cuomo, he's responsible, talking about how great he worked the pandemic. He put, and this is a real sign that someone put up there in New York, excuse me, he put people in nursing homes back in there with COVID-19, knowing the threat that it was to especially our elderly population. He needs to answer for that before he becomes Attorney General. God help us if that ever comes back. But it's just crazy what's happening out here. I got to tell you this quick little story, man. I'm going to put up this meme if we can. It's a Time magazine. It's a variation. Look at that. That is not a real, I got to say that algorithm, and I'll explain it in a second. That is not a real photo, not a cover. It has been photoshopped to put Xi Jinping in the middle of it, right? But Facebook now has come out and fact-checked me on this. Now, when I posted that on my Facebook page, I literally wrote this in the caption above this. I said, this makes more sense. It explains, basically referring to Time Man of the Year. But I put in the caption, I put note to Facebook fact checkers, and I put in big capital letters, it's a joke. So Facebook now has reprimanded me for having a Facebook joke I mean, it's unbelievable. But anyway, I just had to get that story out. Cuomo said, and you want to hear a joke? You want to hear a joke? Listen to what Andrew Cuomo said. He said, this is a major problem, talking about his state not getting bailed out. It's also a major disgrace. Yeah, you should know about that. We have been talking about this for months, since before the election, and then after the election, people were supposed to put their politics aside. This is Andrew Cuomo, for God's sakes. He said people were supposed to put their politics aside and actually do their jobs. Do their job. Put the I mean, if you want to, if I told you there's one leader in America that puts the politics aside and just does their job, where on that would you put Andrew Cuomo? Would he even cross your mind as someone who puts politics aside? Because he's politics 24/7. And he's auditioning, I guess, for his new job as Attorney General. God help us, but he'll probably be as good as any of the rest of them we've had up there, because they don't do nothing. The swamp will love Andrew Cuomo, that is for sure. He went on to say, I need hospitals. Listen to now, just keep in mind that President Trump built a hospital in the Javits Center up there that was almost unused, put a hospital ship right there in the harbor, and they basically didn't use it. Gave him tons of ventilators, to the point that Cuomo said we don't need anymore. But he said, I need hospitals and nurses and National Guard to do this unprecedented operation. Now is when you want to bankrupt New York. It's madness. Madness. Well, who the heck bankrupt New York? It wasn't conservatives. In fact, conservatives kept you in money up there. They're bailing on you right now, Governor Cuomo, because you're, quote, taxing the rich, taxing them to the point that they're moving to Florida. Now, if you're coming to Florida or you're leaving California for Texas or Florida, either one, all I say is don't bring your politics with you. Don't bring what you're running from down here. I can't say that enough, but let me check my time. All right, got a few minutes. Federal lawmakers had been seeking $500 billion in aid for states like New York and cities earlier this year, but backed off as they sought to reach a deal on a financial rescue package by the end of the year. Federal lawmakers, I like how they say that. Now, what they're talking about is the congressmen and women from places like California and New York. But the problem is federal lawmakers, that term, that somehow federal lawmakers are going to bail the states out. I hate to break it to you, but that's the problem. Too dadgum many federal lawmakers making federal laws and spending your tax dollars. It should be up to the states. The states are competitive in one sense. If you look at the top, say, 10 states in the country and what their fiscal situation is, you know what you're going to see? You're going to see that pretty much all of them are governed by Republicans. Now, I'm not saying that every Republican is all that in a bag of chips. Now, our governor here in Florida, Ron DeSantis, is doing a jam-up job. But and so is the governor of places like Texas, which are the two places everybody seems to be moving to. You know, so, I mean, I give them that. But I can tell you this, I don't necessarily trust Republicans. I trust Donald Trump, and he told you Georgia folks to get out there and vote. So that's enough for me. Get out there and vote for them two Republicans. I'm not saying they're the answer, but one thing I know is, I said this yesterday, and I'll go ahead and say it again. I trust two people really in Washington 100% right now. One of them is Donald Trump. I trust that he's going to put America first and going to do what he thinks is right for the country. I trust that implicitly. You know the other person I trust? I trust 100% Chuck Schumer. Now, would I turn my back on him? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I trust that he's going to do exactly what he said. I trust that he's going to fundamentally change America if Georgia goes Democrat. That he's going to do for the United States what his buddy Andrew Cuomo did for New York, bankrupt us. So, you know, I'm not saying Republicans have all the answers. Matter of fact, I want to hold them to a higher standard than anybody. But I do know what happens if we get full progresso world Democrats. It is open the checkbook and Katie bar the door. Democrats and Republicans are now pinning their hopes on another round of financial aid that provides direct stimulus payments to Americans, and Democrats are hoping for a broader deal once President-elect Joe Biden is in the White House. It'll be blank check Joe. Man, are you listening, Georgia? Are you guys listening? Please get out and vote no matter what. Hold your nose if you have to. In the meantime, as state and local governments, which are obligated to balance their budgets, face a financial squeeze as the pandemic continues, they could be forced to impose severe spending cuts that could leave millions of people out of work. Now, who is the millions of people they're talking about, basically? They're talking about government workers. Let me back up and tell you, I don't have anything against government workers. I don't. Matter of fact, I was a big friend of them. You go back and look at my record in my little town of Hawthorne when I was mayor, and any of the employees that are still there, some of them dead and gone now, would tell you that I looked out for them. They never had insurance before I got there, never had a pay scale that would, if they got more training, all that stuff was implemented. When I didn't have a pension plan, I implemented all that. So I'm not against government workers whatsoever. I'm not. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was pro-union except for government workers, because he said that basically you're negotiating with yourself. So what they're talking about is not mom and pops going out of business, not you trying to keep your job, truckers out there rolling. They're talking about they're worried that they're going to have to lay off government workers. That would be bad. But they don't care about the average American person out there, not to insinuate that government workers aren't. But here's a term, and I say this from time to time. You know this term that came out basically during 2020, essential workers? I've always, something rubbed me wrong the first time I heard that, and I loathe that term. Now, that is not to talk about first responders like police, firefighters, and you nurses and doctors out there. I mean, my wife works with COVID patients and everything else. She's a nurse. So I'm all with that, and I agree that your job is incredible and you're doing an incredible job. But essential, I don't like that term because it implies that other jobs are not essential. And my point is, if your job is the sole thing that's putting food on your table and keeping a roof over your head and your children healthy, wealthy, and wise, so to speak, then your job is essential. It is absolutely the most essential one out there to you and your family. So I don't like that. I never have liked that. And what really gets me is we got to open the country back up. We got to open it up. We got to face the challenge and open it back up. Our challenge is no greater than other generations. There are other generations who faced more imminent death than we are, I can tell you that. We got to open it up. And here's the big question I have, and we'll close the show with this. Who gave these little Napoleons, these tin-pot dictators, the authority to shut us down in the first place? I still haven't had an answer to that. And I go back to what we started this segment on, Governor Murphy of New Jersey. I want to play this little video. You've probably seen it, but if you hadn't, you need to watch it. It was on Tucker Carlson's show when this shutdown first started, and this Governor Murphy responds about the Bill of Rights, and I think it symbolizes everything that is wrong with our response to the coronavirus and progresso world, which is literally at our doorstep. Check it out.
So you made that decision, and as I noted before, 15 congregants at a synagogue in New Jersey were arrested and charged for being in a synagogue together. Now, the Bill of Rights, as you well know, protects Americans' right, enshrines their right to practice their religion as they see fit and to congregate together, to assemble peacefully. By what authority did you nullify the Bill of Rights in issuing this order? How do you have the power to do that?
That's above my pay grade, Tucker. So I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this. We went to all. First of all, we looked at the.
It just infuriates me, that statement. And he chuckles about, I wasn't thinking about the Bill of Rights when we did it. And there you go. There's the problem. You're asking us to unify. Biden keeps saying, behind what? Behind what? If we don't unify behind the Constitution, if we have governors that literally laugh off the Bill of Rights, there's nothing to unify. The problem in America right now, the solution to our problem is a return to the U.S. Constitution and our founding fathers and the principles which are as strong now and as true now as they ever have been. Anything less than that is going to be disastrous, and we're going to do just the opposite of what Benjamin Franklin said when asked, what did you give us? A republic if you can keep it. If we keep electing people like Murphy, God help us, Joe Biden, we are doomed. We've got to return back to the Constitution, and I'm going to keep pushing that as long as I have breath in my lungs and the ability to put this show out there. Thank you so much for listening. Like I say each and every day, I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's pray for this great nation and our president. They both have earned that right. But like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.